What's up, everyone? Thomas here with ForReel, and I am absolutely thrilled to be speaking today with film and entertainment composer Torin Borrowdale. Torin's work spans across many types of entertainment, from scoring video games like Alto's Adventure to the feature-length films like the 2020 thriller film Run to the Netflix series Locke Key. And he's composed the score for the upcoming show 5 Days at Memorial, which is set to debut on Apple TV in August. I am personally a big fan and have been following his work since I was amazed by his remarkable score in the 2018 film Searching. So believe me when I say that it means a lot that I have this opportunity to chat with him. So Torin, this really is an honor. Thank you so much for being here and welcome to ForReel.
Wow, thank you. Nice to meet you, Thomas. And
yes.
That was such a nice introduction. Thank you very much.
Well, definitely warranted. I am a big fan of your work, and I'm excited to talk more about you and your career. Before we jump into those questions, because I want to get to know you a little bit more, and obviously we're going to talk about 5 Days at Memorial a little bit later. But what is your all-time favorite film score?
My all-time favorite film score. If I had to choose just one, I would say How to Train Your Dragon by John Powell.
All right, is my good favorite choice.
Yeah, he's been, and that score, if I had to choose one, it would be that one.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool. I think about this because one of my favorite films of all time, which all my friends know, is Lord of the Rings. Phenomenal films, but it took me some time to realize that obviously they're great pieces of filmmaking and really just awesome cinematic experiences, but it was really Howard Shore's score that makes that movie, just elevates it to this whole nother level. So I think it was when I realized that I understood the power of music in cinema. Like, we know it's there and we know that it's affecting us, but it's so, when it's done right, it's so subtle, or it's just so incorporated. It's so
absolutely. I mean, and that's one of the reasons why Lord of the Rings is still so watchable even 20 years later. Like the craft that they put into the entire production, I mean, it really holds up, and the score is definitely a part of that.
Yeah, incredible. So, but good choice on How to Train Your Dragon and John Powell. I like that. Let's talk about you a little bit. Give me some history. How did you get into music? Where did you study? And how did you get into composing and for entertainment and film?
Well, I took piano lessons like everybody else, and I absolutely hated it. And
you could have fooled me.
Yeah. I enjoyed writing my own music rather than practicing other people's music. And after a while, I just loved movies as well, and I realized I could combine my talent with music with my love for cinema, and that could be a career. Another one of my favorite film scoring icons is James Newton Howard, and I saw that he went to USC. So to me, that was the place to be. So I went to USC and did as many student films, student games, just anything I could get my hands on to film score. And then made some really good friends along the way. And from there, I scored a lot of student things after college, and that turned into a niche cognitive for a film that you mentioned earlier called Searching, which led to another one called Run. And that was kind of the beginning of my career, and here we are today.
It really is so cool to see the trajectory of your career, because I think I had mentioned to you over email, I played Alto's Adventure before Searching came out, and I remember thinking, this music's amazing. Like, where did they get this from? But, at that point, it's just, it's a mobile game. I didn't realize how much production value goes into it. It's a beautiful game, very amazing. But then I saw Searching, and the score for Searching was just so compelling. I had to look up who did this. And Alto's Adventure is on his credits too. That makes so much sense. So
it's
anyway.
really nice. No, it's always great to hear about Alto's Adventure, because that was the track I did for that game, I really didn't think so much of it. Like it was just a set, I think it's 6 or 7 minute track.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, I think it's got more plays on Spotify than anything else that I've ever written. And I'm not sure how that happened, but I'm glad that people have been able to connect with it. You know, it's a special score.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, just kind of thinking about the track of your career. I mean, Alto's Adventure is a very adventure themed game, and your score reflects that. But then you get Searching, which has this mystery element, also very sentimental aspect to it. And then you start seeing, a more horror and thriller in your music. You just are able to work with so many different genres. I want to know more about how you developed your style of composing, because all the artists composers that you've mentioned, they have a style. When you hear their thing, it's distinct, right? And I think that you've done the same thing. Can you tell me more about how that developed?
Oh, thanks. That's nice. I mean, I feel like I'm still trying to figure out what my style is, but that's that's a nice observation. You know, it's really been a great blessing to be able to work in so many different genres, and not get pigeonholed into one thing. You know, even after Alto's Adventure, the success of that, you know, we did Where Cards Fall and a couple other games with the same company. You know, that didn't prevent me from doing other projects, from working on mysteries and horror and things like that. It's funny that I would end up in horror because I didn't watch anything remotely scary growing up, however. So if you had told my younger self that I'd be scoring a show like Locke Key, I just wouldn't have believed you. But you know, it's great to expand into different genres, and it, you know, even Lock and Key in and of itself is, I always say it's a mix of four different genres: fantasy, horror, like family drama, and I forget what
Adventure.
the last one is. Adventure, there we go.
Yeah.
So it's we just finished season 3 of Lock and Key, and so it is coming to a close. So unfortunately, that journey is over, but you know, it'll be exciting to see what comes next.
But how cool for you to be able to compose through the completion of a show. I mean, that's one of the things that I'm apprehensive about with TV is, like, a season's greenlit. I love it, but who knows if it's going to get a second season, and then who knows if it's going to be canceled after that, right? So, so it is nice that you're able to get 3 seasons in with Lock and Key, and that that is coming to a close with your score.
Absolutely. Yeah, and to be there from day one to, you know, the final scoring session was, you know, very, very sentimental. It was definitely a big chapter in my scoring career.
That's so awesome. You keep talking about things that you weren't necessarily drawn to, but ended up capitalizing on, whether it's piano or whether it's horror. What else do you not like, so that so that I can figure out what you're gonna do next?
I also hate winning Oscars, you know.
No. I love it.
Oh, that's interesting. I never quite put that together. I mean, I guess it's just never say never, because you know, growing up, I didn't enjoy the feeling of horror, and then when I started composing for it, I finally understood what it was. You know, it doesn't have to be outrageously scary. It can be a fun scary, and you know, I don't, and that's why I'm open to others I haven't considered before. I haven't really done much like romantic comedy, for instance, but you know, as a genre, that could be really fun to get into. You know, it's not necessarily has to be a certain way, and I think having a variety is always helpful.
Absolutely. All right. I have one more question before we jump into talking about 5 Days at Memorial, and something that I recognize, like with things that I do all the time, like being a film critic, or even being a marketer. Like, I look at these things that I do all the time, and I'm highly critical of them, like all the time. So when I go to a movie, I can't not be a critic. Like all my friends, when I go with them, they're like, "Oh, it was great," and I'm like, "But what about this and this and this?" And they're like, "We did not think of that. We were not paying attention to that," right? And so I wonder, as a
Uh,
film composer, when you watch movies, is that something that you are like always tuned into, or are you able to turn it off and like compartmentalize that?
no, I can't turn it off.
Okay.
But I will say, you know, as analytical as I am, I try not to be so critical anymore, because having worked on a series, for
Mhm.
instance, it is so difficult and so time consuming, and it puts so much effort from all the people involved in the show, that go into every single season, that, you know, for something to not quite come together perfectly happen. And
Mhm.
I think as viewers, we're so used to, you know, being able to binge an entire series if we wanted to, uh, in a week, and we don't realize that that's every season of every show is years of people's lives that they put
Mhm.
into it. So I'm much more forgiving than I used to be, about, you know, any details that I think could be better. Um, you know, TV shows and movies are such a collaborative process that, it's not really about perfection anymore. Which I used to feel like everything should be, you know, absolutely perfect and nothing should be wrong. But,
Mhm.
you know, I think there's a lot more that can be said about, imperfections. For instance, it doesn't have to be, something can be surprising and different, not what I would have done personally, but, you know, I
Mhm.
think those can lead to more interesting ideas.
That's awesome. I appreciate that perspective because I think I'm the same way in talking with filmmakers and casts and crew. I've gained a much broader perspective of like filmmaking, and sometimes I wonder how are films even made. There's so much collaboration that has to happen. How do we first of all make these films, and then secondly have so many that come out? It's a miracle, I think, and so it's really cool.
It is truly remarkable. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about 5 days of 5 days at Memorial. This is a show, an Apple TV miniseries that's based on the book by Sheri Fink, about the challenges doctors and nurses face at a New Orleans hospital as they struggle to treat patients without power for 5 days during Hurricane Katrina. Um, I have not seen the show yet. I have not heard your music. I'm sure it's going to be great. I'm sure, but I'm relying on you to kind of, prepare us for what to look forward to in this show. So, can you tell me a little bit about your impressions on the show and what we can expect?
Of course, yeah. No, it's a fantastic show. It's a true incident that happened based on a book, like you said.
Mhm.
And I think what the show does really well is that it presents many different points of view on quite a complicated subject. And what I wanted to make sure that the score spoke to was each individual character's point of view. Normally on a show like Lock and Key, for instance,
Mhm.
there's a good guy, bad guy, and we very much know who we're rooting for. As a memorial, everyone's point of view kind of exists in a gray area. And instead of, you know, having the music tell the audience how they should feel about each character, we kind of present each character, um, from that person's perspective, so that the audience can kind of see how everyone is acting and make their own decision about it. Um, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, entertainment I think is best when it comes with nuance, right?
Mhm.
I think we're kind of trained as audiences to, like you said, know the protagonist, know the antagonist, know who to root for, and who to defeat, I guess. But when there is nuance and when there's like extra context that has to be considered, I think that really appeals to me in storytelling and entertainment, and is one of the reasons that this movie or this show has stood out to me, because it sounds like something that's going to tell some very harrowing stories, but also maybe even pull at some emotional heartstrings. Like, what can we expect with how we're going to feel in this show?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some emotional moments. I think overall the show is kind of a question of medical ethics. You know, when you're put into a situation that is so dire that there are no there are no good solutions. I mean, there's no power at the hospital. There's no good way to evacuate patients. You know, no one wants to be in a situation like that. So when you're kind of forced into that situation, you have to just make it work.
Mhm.
And yeah, subtlety was really key for the score on this one, because the situation itself is so dire, and you know, we're really with these doctors and patients, that the music doesn't need to make anything larger. It doesn't need to make the situation more dramatic than it already is. And so it was actually kind of nice to let the music kind of be more in the background,
Mhm.
and kind of react to characters in the scene rather than trying to make things more dramatic than they already were.
Very interesting. You know, I that all sounds so I'm because hearing it conceptually, right? Like I guess I mean I know what I like when I see it, but you have to like project and you have to like figure it out in, you know, and make it the thing that, you know, we're going to be able to take in and enjoy. So I find that
Mhm.
amazing. But um I was interested in knowing what you maybe included in this score that makes it special or distinct from other things that you've done?
Yeah, so um, the big departure for me here, and this was kind of new, was exploring more soloistic instruments. So in Lock and Key, it's all big orchestra, a lot of energy on the screen. This one was a lot more pared back. A lot of times it's only a solo instrument, literally just one instrument playing. And that for me is really, that's a vulnerable thing for a composer to do. That's like a, you know, a monologue for an actor, or something that's very you know, vulnerable. So for me, that was outside my comfort zone. And how I figured out how to adapt for this show was, you know, I realized I needed to change my entire template, but I didn't necessarily need to change my dramatic sensibilities about what was going on. I just needed to dial in, all right, how much does the music have to heighten the emotion? How much does it have to just react to it or comment at all? And I realized that that takes just as much effort to figure out when not to play, to when not to overdo things, what moments to make. Uh, whereas, you know, Lock and Key, there's a lot of big changes and transitions, uh, and um, and really focusing on the soloist, because a lot of the times that's all it needed. It just needed one player to make the statement that it needed, and it didn't need to be an ensemble any larger than that.
Very cool. I'm so excited. Like I can't wait to hear like how this like new dynamic works with this show. I think it's going to be really cool. Um,
Yeah, it was a good process, and luckily I had worked with the same showrunner, Carlton Cuse, and the post producer, Rauf Glasgow, on Lock and Key. So even though the score is totally different, we did have a kind of a shorthand in our creative process, since we'd worked together before. So that definitely helps. And you know, we had kind of a compressed timeline for it as well. I came in late in the post process, and so we didn't really have time to get things wrong. We had to get things
mhm.
right really quickly. So we had to figure out a workflow that was really efficient, and I think the compressed timeline really helped us, you know, focus on what was important, and then we could kind of strip away the things that really weren't. So
Very cool. Very cool. That it just has me so excited for the show, and I can't wait to promote it and tell friends about it. Is there anything else that you want to talk about with the show before we move on? There's a couple more questions I want to ask for you.
no, I mean it's a really important show, and I really enjoyed working on it. It's the type of project, if you'd asked me in college, that I would have said I would want to work on, and then I this is my first opportunity too. So
Nice.
it's been really, it's been another dream project to be a part of.
That's awesome. Very cool. So with your career, I mentioned before, you've scored uh, many different types of entertainment, video games, short films, feature length films, TV series. I was curious, do you have a favorite? Is there a preferred type of entertainment that you like to score?
Um, well, same with genre. They're all so different that the variety really is what makes it interesting. I always pictured myself being a film composer, and
Mhm.
then having gotten into television, I realized that I really like that too. Film, I do love film, but it is a very short medium, and you don't have a lot of time to really develop themes or make broader connections. Whereas if you have a whole season to do something, you can really flesh out a lot of these character arcs. And I, I personally find that more as a composer to be able to really feel like you've explained everything you wanted to. So I'd say at the moment, and maybe that's just because I've done two shows back to back. I prefer television.
Yeah, very cool. And I think even as viewers, we recognize that because I mean, a TV, the quality of television shows has increased dramatically, in recent years, and TV shows are practically just extended movies now, which is awesome, and to be able to, get a lot more depth out of storylines and be able to explore things with more detail, and so I can totally see how scoring that and being a part of a longer form of storytelling would be appealing to.
Yeah, absolutely. And having having done a couple movies as well, I try to treat every show episode of a TV series that I work on with the same amount of care as I would a feature length film.
Yeah.
So even though it's only a TV show, or it's just a 30-minute episode of whatever, I still treat it with as much care as if it was a theatrical release. So I think having both of those approaches really helps.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, I was curious, is there a filmmaker who you would love to work with, who think you think would match with your style really well?
I don't know. I haven't thought too strongly about that. I think keeping it open to different genres, I think, is really kind of paid off thus far. And so I don't have my sights set on, Spielberg or anyone like that. Um, but if he's interested, I would work with him.
Of course.
So I think keeping a broader casting a broader net at this moment is kind of what I'm aiming towards.
Very cool. All right. One last question for you. What is, if you haven't mentioned yet, what is one thing that you want people to know about when it comes to your line of work as a film composer?
One thing I'd want people to know about film, like me as a film composer,
You as a
or
film
about film
composer, like I'm
composing.
just like with your career, I think that, like I mentioned before, I think composing can be so underrated or overlooked. What do you think people, the general audience, should know about either film composing in general or even you as a film composer and what you do in your process?
Okay. Yeah, I'd say, composers kill themselves over these TV shows and movies. Like, I mean, it's funny how little, even me as a composer, yeah, I do tune it out sometimes. And, I'm always in the back of my head noticing the music, but I'm not always calculating like the number of minutes, like, oh, there was a lot of minutes in that episode. Usually I'm just
Mhm,
watching it for the entertainment,
mhm.
and I'll notice certain moments. But we composers, we really do try very hard to entertain everyone. And I'm glad to do interviews like these, and I'm glad you're interviewing, other different disciplines, because everyone that's dedicated their life to a certain craft, is really putting their soul in some shape or form on the screen. And so, it's nice to be, appreciated and asked about these sort of things, because we really do care as artists. So um yeah, I appreciate you taking the time to do this interview.
I am so excited. I'm hiding it right now, but I am so happy that we were able to do this. And like I said, I'm excited to see the show and tell people about it and finally get to hear what you have going on with the score with that. I guess technically last question, and maybe this is projecting a little bit farther than we need to, but do you have anything else in the works that you might be able to tease or mention?
Can't tease anything as of now, but
That's fair. But you are working on other things.
Yes, I cannot disclose.
That's fair. I will take that and be happy with it. Very cool. So for those watching, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm speaking with Torin Borrowdale, the composer, for a number of films and entertainment projects, including Searching and Locke Key. His work, his most recent work, can be heard on the upcoming Apple TV miniseries 5 Days at Memorial, which premieres, I don't think I mentioned it yet, August 12th. On Apple TV Plus. So, and I'm just super excited for him and his career, because I can only see it getting bigger and better from here. So, Torin, thank you so much for doing this with me, and good luck with everything that you have going on.
Wow, thank you so much, Thomas. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, for everyone out there watching, until next time, keep it for real.